It was set out in 2014 and 2015 beginning as a pilot for 3 years. It had set out with certain targets of how much content we will have, how many users we will have and so on. So, it has achieved so much more than that, like 5 lakh content was supposed to be there, now we have 1 crore 26 lakh content. So, those parameters have become irrelevant. So, I would rather talk in terms of what it has achieved in more intangible terms. So, one as I think it has achieved is the confidence of a nation that India too can do very big digital projects successfully well within time and get its citizens connected. So, I think that is a big take back in terms of what has been achieved. The result of which has made that pilot has been cut down and we are already in phase 2, 6 months ahead of the original schedule, and we have bigger objectives now. The second take back I would say, or second achievement I would say, is significantly that we now are known internationally as having a major digital library. So, if in the time frame of 2015 end, we did a evaluation of ourselves against how do we do against the major libraries. So, we had nine major libraries in the world, digital libraries in the world, and we compared against, and we were quite lacking in those. Now, out of those 9, at least 4 currently are in different forms, are working with us or wants to work with us, and 7 libraries, digital libraries from the world attended the 3-day conference, and everybody recognizes that India has a major library to count for. The subcontinent, countries like Bangladesh, Nepal are relying on us to help them build their own digital knowledge infrastructure. So, I think these are more intangible and real value that we have been able to earn, and with that naturally there has been a lot of responsibility and lot of expectations. So, now the one of the biggest I think is, earlier we were given targets to meet. This time we have been asked that what is the target that we will set ourselves, because ministry said that well, if we set targets that may be too low for you, and that puts a lot of pressure on us. So, there is a lot to deliver on this. The earlier initiatives were similar in name, but not the similar initiative. For example, the closest in name is Digital Library of India, which originally was a million book project. The objective there was very different. You will have to always understand that what is the time frame in which something is being attempted. This was about 10 years back. At that time, the availability of digital content itself was very rare. It was not very abundant. So, what Professor Balakrishnan and his team and DST who funded and Industry of Science wanted to do is to take up 1 million books which do not have copyrights, scan them, distributed over different centers and make them available to public. They have been able to achieve about 60% of that, which is a very, very tall order. So, they have scanned them, then a lot of technology was developed at ISC Bangalore, at IIIT Hyderabad to improve the scanning results. The whole infrastructure for distribution was done, and it is one of the very well appreciated collection on India in digital domain. DLI may not have been used very widely in India, but is very widely used by people outside India who want to work on India. So, it has achieved that target. The DLI did not have target of setting out an online service of education or focusing on education, they just wanted to create that content. So, that was a very different objective, and some of the similar other that has been done, none of them were with this kind of a national objective of education or knowledge asset. So, they were either small scale of content generation or small scale of library automation, a part of library automation, cataloging service. So, the conceptualization of this project itself happened in a very different terms, and that I think was possible because of several other reasons. I mean, time was ready, the technology was ready, the vision was there and so on. Maybe we could have thought about this maybe at least 5 years earlier, but then as we do it and as we are interacting with so much of international community, we find that there are several important or technologically powerful countries who are not even at our stage. They are now asking us, how did you do this? We will do it, looking after you. So it was that way well conceived. I'm going to disappoint you, because that's not the first priority of phase 2. Because all the 4 sectors that you have mentioned are sectors of higher education. Our primary priority in phase 2, first priority in phase 2 is going to be school education. So, kind of things that we are thinking about, one is you would know that Prime Minister ran a Read Gujarat program, right? So, where people were encouraged in different ways to share books, read books and so on. So that's, we might do similar kind of reading clubs, book clubs within this. We are certainly going to have very organized school library within NDL, which will mean that for each one of the separate boards, we'll have textbooks for all the levels. For at least middle school and senior school level, we will try to have question papers for at least some of the subjects. We'll try to have solutions for those. So the idea is, if you are with one of the state boards or the central board, and you are at a certain level and you want to find out content, related learning material for your level of study, you should be able to find a decent set of material. And interestingly, we have been doing this for some 5-6 school board material is already in, and last month there was a program in Kerala where with P.N. Panikkar Foundation, some young students were given training in how to use internet, and we were using NDL portal as an example. And when they were explained what it means, so the first thing they asked that, so we asked, what do you want to check out? They said such and such books. So certainly what it meant is those are textbooks of Kerala's board. They tried, and to our utter surprise, they were there. NDL already had them, and so the kids got hooked up, and it's now propagating quite well in the school circles, even particularly because those books are not out of publication in Kerala board. So they are. We want to set up a strong infrastructure in school education, because that is one of the major target areas. Coming to higher education, certainly each one of the areas you specified, of these the technology right now is quite strong. And I think because of the driving group being in technology, this will naturally get, so we do not have a specific plan for technology, because I think it will naturally get strengthened, because that's what we know. For law and medicine, we are still working through in terms of how to make that happen, because these are extremely difficult areas. So while we would say, I would say that we will try to put undergraduate level content in law and medicine, but they are too deep, too technical, so I cannot really promise whether the curriculum will get covered. There are two things. One is, if you look into NDLI right now, you will get a lot of medical material also, but it doesn't cover a curriculum. If I say that if I'm doing a basic MBBS, do I get material for every course? In this you don't. You might get a number of good papers. So my objective is achieving certain completeness. We may not be able to achieve that completeness in medical or law. I do not think that. In terms of humanities, we are still detailing out as to which part we will do first. Certainly, probably the first thing we will do is heritage, which is more like art, painting and all those. The reason is that is one part which not only we need, but is the world needs. Certainly we want to not only use things from other countries, but we want to give them. Our heritage is so rich that we need to continuously build upon that. Beyond that, in humanities, we haven't yet, practically we haven't yet thought, so I'll not be in a position to say. And science and technology will continue to happen, because that's where, that's most of the drivers of this program are from science and technology, so that happens naturally. We are looking forward to 3 or 4 types of collaborations, and some are where we will get help, some where we will provide help, some are 2 ways. So, one sect is based on content. So, we have talked to a number of libraries who have, not only libraries and repositories, who have really good content, to share that with NDL. Most important of that is Microsoft Academic. So, I had a word with them, and they are willing to give us free access. So, we will eventually integrate whole of Microsoft Academic as a, so they are a different kind of an international partner. So, when some search will be done in NDLI, all content of Microsoft Academic will also appear in that search. That is one kind of. Other kind, quite a number of particularly culture heritage content will get integrated from Europeana, from Trove. In which order, in what time frame, we do not know still, but in principle we agree that these all, we will give them our heritage contents and we will use their heritage content. So, that is another aspect. The third is in terms of technology exchange. Trove has done quite an innovative design with crowdsource correction of contents. Crowdsourcing is knowledge, expands your bandwidth, but runs the risk of it may be irresponsible results. But they have done a kind of nice interface, selective moderation, have an honor role, and some of the crowdsourcing contributors do an amazing amount of some 400,000 words every month, free volunteers there. So, that part of socio-technological model we found very interesting. So, we have requested that if we can use that kind of a model. Europeana is going to help us with number of technology models that they have. On the other side, we probably would help South Africa with the integration model that we have. We are certainly going to help Bangladesh with some of our models, might extend that. Bangladesh might help us with cultural content. So, it's, if you enumerate, it's too many of them, but what all of us, what this workshop has given us is given us an exposure in terms of the extent of content and extent of technologies that different libraries have. And in the final session, we have agreed that we are open to collaborating and exchanging that. So, some of them are clearly spelled out, some will evolve through that. So, that way this workshop would be quite rewarding for us, a lot of learning really. See, the whole idea of NDLI is as an integrated library, right. So, others have contents, we take metadata from them and integrate, right. Now, why does that work? Because the others are also generators of content. So, they generate content, instead of they directly disseminating, they are giving it to us, we are disseminating through that, content is actually going from there. If you look into the public libraries are on the other side, they are consumers of content, they do not generate anything. So, as such, there is not much meaning in terms of saying that we integrate with public libraries, because public libraries have collection of books and all that, which are copyrighted by someone else, held by someone else. So, they cannot digitize and give us those, right. So, in that sense the integration does not work. So, what we are planning to do, and that kind of got initiated in a recent workshop that we attended in Delhi, the 3rd IPLC, Indian Public Library Conference, which was organized by Indian Public Library Movement, IPLM is a body, is what we have said is we will try to integrate with public libraries to get their users, public library users, make them by default the NDL users, so that the public libraries can benefit from there. That is the first level of integration. The second level of integration is if you look take a step back and try to look at the whole of the nation differently. You have a strong, let us say, strong digital library of India, lot of contents, possible access, strong search, semantic. You have 1.5 lakh, 150,000 public libraries in India. Very poor infrastructure in most of them, almost no staff, all that. But the point is, in every corner you have a physical infrastructure. You have a physical room. You have physical, in most of them you have a electricity connection, which are physical. So there's a virtual library, there's a physical infrastructure. Can we make it mutually effective? Public library, those who are members of public library, they are expecting different services from public library, which public library is unable to provide. They want career counseling services. They want skill development services. That is what will make them attractive to come to that space. So what is happening? If you think about the space as a library space where books are to be given and returned, or just as a reading room space, nobody is interested today, very few people. But if you think of using that space, which can be used for, say, certain kinds of career counseling or skill training and so on, where the content and the videos and everything can come from NDL, and the members come to their physical library and this gets conducted, there is an emerging model. Now this has to be discussed. These are all some of our thoughts. We have to get it through with the public library movement better and so on. But that is a potential integration, which if we can do, that will create a lot of benefits. The third part of integration is, first was users, second was services. The third part is what we have not touched, because even in the second phase NDLI does not have that, is actually digitizing content. Quite a number of the public libraries were originally personal collections and then they were donated. So often public libraries have very good old collections of Nawabs and all that, which the public libraries own. So those can be digitized, but we are not being able to look at that because NDL proposal as such has no provision for digitization. If we, in the process, if we come across these opportunities, we will possibly refer that to the appropriate places in the ministry for separate projects in this. So this is more or less our current thoughts with the public library system, but as on ground nothing has happened. These are just ideas. We have had a proposal from Tainakan in the afternoon that they will give us all that infrastructure and help us through this process, different usages, typical usages of the WordPress that they have built it on to help in that. We have to think through this. This is kind of, we have had variants of these proposals. If you, European has a concept of an exhibition, where you actually can go and say that I will do this exhibition. You are free to take your content and create the exhibition, but you are also free to take content from European and create the exhibition. Exhibition is not only new content, it is a new expression. So Tainakan has a very strong component in that, where I do see NDLI has a very strong opportunity, because if we give that to users, and once users start creating certain micro blogs using even 1-2 contents, that's pretty much parallel to in our social media we have run campaigns in terms of night read or wonderful women and all that. These are very similar in concept. The structure is different, and when you give an infrastructure to readers to do that, naturally the opportunities could be a lot more. So I like that idea as a whole. We'll have to try out and see how we make that work, but that could be a very effective tool, particularly for deep engagement of users who are a little bit savvy with social media and all those. And that can create really good benefits for us. There are multiple dimensions to this. One is if you have followed Professor Basu's presentation carefully, then he had different segments of, what is the kind of spatial interface that he is addressing. Right. So there are screen reading kind of solutions he talked of. We might do that. What is one alternate that he didn't discuss, and I was raising that question at the end, that when you have a screen designed for a visually empowered person and read that out left to right, top to bottom, to a person who does not have that two-dimensional viewer perception, are the cognitive understanding similar? That, if I have seen the screen, I close my eyes, you read it out to me, I do a lot of cognitive transfer. But if I have never seen that screen, if I have never seen any screen, does it really? So my whole life, my whole world is one-dimensional. So the other alternate thought that I have had for quite some time is, can I do a significantly voice-based interaction? That's a purely voice-based interaction. It will not be that screen. So you can do limited things. You cannot certainly do all of that by it yourself easily, but you can do a certain set of words, certain search, and basic navigation, and then a readout of the content to see what you do. This could be supplemented with certain further controls by a Braille keyboard, which is the keypads. So we could look into some of these because what Professor Basu was saying, that those are generic technologies which are very powerful, but they're generic. They're, you take any website and mark that up and then say whether you want to go to number 12 or number. For our case, the situation is there's only one website. So I do not need to mark up the website. I can build that into the website. So the solution may be a little bit different. But this is one mix of voice and, because pure screen reading, I think our basic screen is too complicated for the pure screen reading to give you any effective value. And for that, if you just read out the search result, then why not do a voice interface? That will be much better. And some Braille control. In terms of motor neuron, we intend to try out with the thumbing, because that should work with the current system itself. It needs a small enhancement in that interface, user interface to be done, but which will come in a different mode. So current initial thought is you cannot get started in that. Somebody will have to get you started, but then you can thumb around. That we will try out, because there are only few of those pieces available. So we will try out. Sometime in phase 2, I intend to try these two at least and see how they, because there's a lot of learning that is required for us. Once we do certain prototype, then we will have to run it through the users, and there will be a lot of feedback, I'm sure. As I said that, somehow we have taken the project to a level where we will need to find innovative solutions to go forward, because it is not possible to get, just hire people and keep on scaling up. That's one difficulty. Second difficulty is, even if you want to hire, there's not enough trained people available, because this is not a typical technology that people do. This needs a mixture of library science and computer science. Library science in India does not teach computer science. Computer science in India does not recognize library science. So we are a sort of fix. So the productivity of people, it needs about 1 year before someone gets productive. So crowdsourcing is a very lucrative option. But comes with that is how do you monitor, how do you screen, how do you make sure that, and what do you use crowdsourcing for? Certainly one of the big challenges is metadata, creation, curation, all these. Severe amount of crowdsourcing can be used. Second is we are planning to introduce OCR in a significant way in second phase, so that we can bring in variety of Indian script contents. Who proofreads those? Because these OCRs are going to be extremely error prone. So crowdsourcing could be used there. So there needs to be a proper socio-technological mechanism to use that. That needs quite some brainstorming as to, because you'll find that wherever crowdsourcing is used, it is kind of a disclaimer based service. You said this is crowdsourced, so you go at your own risk. If we do that, then we do not get much value. If I say this is crowdsourced and therefore the search does not have much value, then why should people come to NDLI? We may not have large content, but even then it does moderately what it does, because people painstakingly cleans up metadata. So that mechanism with crowdsourcing, I think we will need to address that. And as I said, Trove is one example who seem to have certain similar things that they have done. Independently, we intend to interact with a lot of other projects which use crowdsourcing for a variety of different things. I'm seriously considering introducing honor rolls and those kind of, it may not be purely crowdsourced. After 2-3 months, those 10 people, 20 people who come up, their content you start putting, and then you create moderators within that. So these are all have to be thought through. I mean, this is not technology which can be done easily. The flip side is, if this goes wrong and you put in a large number of or sizable amount of content in a 2 crore, 3 crore repository, then you have a severe problem in future. So you have to be careful in that. But we are certainly looking at crowdsourcing is what we are seriously looking at as well.